So I thought it would be helpful to give you a step-by-step breakdown of what we will be doing on our field trip. So we will be visiting hopefully it will be a kindergarten and a third grade classroom. And although that could vary, and what will happen is you'll have 3 to 4 people in a group, our students, and each group will meet with one child at a time. And so you'll be sitting at a table and you'll want to introduce yourselves, make them feel comfortable, ask the child their first name, ask them how old they are. One of the things that's important with each of the tasks or activities you're going to do is to make sure you ask them why. You don't want to just get yes and no answers. You really want to know what the thinking is behind that answer. So we'll be doing 10 activities. First activity is called Who Has More? The second one is Penny Conservation. 3 is Legos. 4 is asking some questions about siblings, and it's related to egocentrism. The 5th one looks at a bird made of fruit. The 6th one looks at gifts and egocentrism. The 7th looks at water conservation. The 8th looks at Play-Doh and thinking about mass and conservation. The 9th one is about heteronomous morality, which will come up in a later chapter in the book. And the 10th one is about the false belief task, and it's a story about Anthony's book, and that will also come up later in the book. On the form, these may or may not be in this exact order, but that's the order we'll talk about them right now. So the first activity is called Who Has More? You'll have 10 pennies and 1 dime. You'll lay out the 10 pennies as if those are yours, and the dime as if that is the child's, and you're going to ask them if it's fair. If I have these and you have this, is this fair? And then you'll find out why they think it is or why they think it is not. The second activity is penny conservation. And so what you're going to do is lay out 12 pennies. So you'll have 2 rows of 6 pennies. You'll ask the child, do they both have the same? And if they don't look like they have the same, or do these look equal, you can let them touch them to make them so they feel that they are the same. So you'll say, does this row have more? Does this row have more? Or do they have the same? Then you'll take one of the rows and you will space them out a little bit farther apart, and you'll ask them, does this row have more? Does this row have more? Or do they have the same? And then whatever they answer, you're going to ask them why or why not. The next activity is about Legos. So you'll have 20 Legos. You're going to make 2 identical formations out of the 2 sets of Legos, and you'll ask the child if these 2 are the same. Okay, if they don't think it is, you can let them see it, play with it, so that they can establish that these 2 are in fact the same. Then take one of the towers of Legos apart, and you'll ask again, is this the same amount? And actually probably want to use the word amount. Do these 2 have the same amount? And if they say yes or no, whichever they answer, you want to find out why they think that or why they don't think that. The 4th activity is called Siblings and Egocentrism. So you'll ask the child if they have any brothers or sisters. And if they say they do, if they say they don't, you can skip this question altogether. But if they say they do, you'll ask them how many brothers or how many sisters. And then you want to say, choose a brother or a sister and say, does your brother have any sisters or brothers? Or does your sister have any sisters or brothers? And ask how many. And then, or maybe asking, does your brother or sister have another brother or another sister? And the question is whether or not they count themselves. And if they can look from the perspective of that sibling to realize that they are somebody's brother or sister. Activity 5 I call the fruit bird, and you're going to show this picture to the child. It should be folded so you can read the directions on the back, and they can see the picture. The question, you're just going to ask them what they see, and you're going to write down their first response and then say, do you see anything else? And see if they say anything else. One of the things they find is that younger children, because of centration, tend to focus on the whole picture or the parts, and maybe you might find a difference in whether the older kids or younger kids, what they notice in this picture, so that it can be very interesting. Activity 6 is about gifts and egocentrism. You're going to ask the child a question. Try to get that. You're going to ask them to name an important person in their life, and you want to be, because you don't know what a family's dynamic is. You don't know if there's a mother or a father in the house. So you just want to ask if who's someone that's important in your life, a relative, a friend, and then you want to have them tell them. Say, pretend that it's your mother or father, aunt, uncle, cousin, whatever, that it's their birthday, and you want to surprise them with a gift. And you want to ask the child what they're going to get them and why. The question is, will they think about what, from the person's perspective, what that person would really want, or are they going to name something that they personally would like as a gift? And these can bring up some kind of interesting responses. Activity 8 is about Play-Doh and mass. So you're going to have 2 balls of Play-Doh, and you want them to be as close to the same size as you possibly can make them. And you will ask the children or child if these 2 balls of Play-Doh are the same size. If they think they're not, I would let them play with them and take some from one and put it into the other to make them have the same amount. And then ask them how they know it has the same amount. See if you get any kind of explanation from the child. Then you're going to take one of the balls of Play-Doh and roll it into a snake, or you can have the child roll it into a snake. And so what you're going to then do is ask the child, now, does this one have more? Does this one have more? Or do they have the same? And then you'll ask the child why they think that. The third activity is water conservation. And I don't mean like conserving water for the environment. This is conservation according to Piaget's theories. So we're going to start with 2 glasses of water, 2 cups of water, and I'll try to bring food coloring or something so that there's a color to it. So you'll have 2 cups of water. You'll show the child the 2 cups of water, and you'll ask them if they have the same amount. If they say no, I would let them pour one a little into the other to make it so they feel that the 2 cups have the same amount, and ask them how they know. Then you're going to take one of those glasses of water, and you're going to pour it into a shorter, wider cup of water. Then you'll ask the child, do these 2 cups of water have the same amount of water? Does this one have more? Or does this one have more? Or again, do they have the same? And see what their answer is, and make note of the why. I'd like to have you then pour that second glass back into the same glass so that they can see the 2 the same again, and then ask, now do they have the same? And see if they have any kind of response to that. Activity 9 is about heteronomous morality. It's about how children's moral development changes over time. Piaget had some theories on this. So you're going to read 2 stories to the child, and then you'll ask them a question at the end. So the first story is a little boy named John was in his room. His parents called him to dinner. He went into the dining room, but behind the door there was a chair, and on the chair there was a tray with 15 cups on it. John couldn't have known there was all of this behind the door. He goes in, and the door knocks against the tray. Bang go the 15 cups, and they all get broken. Then you'll read story 2. And story 2 says, once there was a little boy whose name was Mark. One day, when his mother was out, he tried to sneak some candy out of the cupboard. He climbed up on the chair, he stretched out his arm, but the candy was too high, and he couldn't reach it to have it. But while he was trying to reach to get it, he knocked over a glass. The glass fell and broke. So the big question is to ask the child, which child should get in more trouble, John or Mark? And then ask the child why that child should be in more trouble. Activity 10 is the false belief task, and we're using the story of Anthony's book. False belief task is something in child development where trying to imagine a child being able to look from somebody else's perspective. So what you'll do is you'll read this story to the child. This is Anthony, and Anthony is reading a book, and you'll want to point to each picture as you read it. When he's done, Anthony puts the book on the table. Anthony leaves to get something to eat. Look, Sonia comes in and moves the book from the table. Then Sonia leaves. Look, Anthony comes back to read some more. Where did Anthony put the book? So you'll ask the child where Anthony put the book in the first place, and you can have them point. Then you'll ask where the book is now. Then you'll ask where Anthony will look for the book first. And so it's important to see Anthony wasn't in the room and didn't see the book get moved. So the question will be, will the child be able to be aware, even though they saw where the book was put, that Anthony did not see this? And that's what the false belief task is all about. So hopefully you won't have too many questions, but I'll be there if you do. And hopefully you'll enjoy the field trip. See you soon.